CM Punk has been medically cleared for an in-ring return to WWE. This, according to the man himself. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about this situation, including the big-time match that was announced for Punk at SummerSlam and what it could mean for WWE over the next few months. Also, we're going to talk about AEW news. Big news, as some of the changes recently to AEW TV are becoming a lot more clear. They are, in fact, in cost-cutting mode. We're going to talk about what that really means and why the company is doing this. All that and much more coming up in this video, so be sure to sit back, relax, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. All right. Without further ado, let's talk about CM Punk. I have chronicled this throughout the entire year so far, and we are finally here. CM Punk has announced tonight on Monday Night Raw that he was medically cleared for return. He not only announced that, he very quickly called out Drew McIntyre, started to tape up his wrists, and challenged him to a fight. It was then revealed by Adam Pearce that the match for SummerSlam is CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, with a special guest referee being Seth freaking Rollins, setting the table for a star-studded affair at WWE's second biggest show of the year. Let's talk about it. Obviously, Punk has not been seen on WWE TV ever since January. That injury that he suffered in the Royal Rumble has kept him out. Now, if you ask CM Punk, a lot of that time was spent really as a precaution. He felt like he was as ready to go as early as WrestleMania, but a few months later, they played it out. They waited until I think the injury was at least close to being fully healed it could possibly be at this point. And now they're giving him the full go. At the end of the month, or at the beginning of August, we will see Punk McIntyre for the first time ever since CM Punk returned to WWE, and ever since this feud became the talk of the town in WWE world. I think there is no bigger, better feud right now than Punk versus McIntyre. I don't think there's anything else that's getting the level of reactions outside of perhaps the Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio love triangle. Outside of that, nothing on this show is getting as big a pop, as big a reaction, as big hype online everywhere than this feud. I think this is WWE's feud so far in the post-Mania setting. I think this is the feud that honestly has carried CM Punk, to this level of relevancy. Punk was always going to be relevant regardless of whether or not he's injured. Look at AEW. Like, that is the biggest indicator of that fact. Punk was not on TV for nearly a year. And then he was not on TV again for like a while. Like, it does not matter when he is there on that roster. He is a draw even when he's not there, and there's always going to be that level of hype around him. But what Drew McIntyre was able to do here was keep Punk relevant as a main eventer, as a bona fide main eventer, even while he was injured. And obviously that speaks to the level of a draw that is CM Punk, but it also speaks to what McIntyre was able to do. And look, the credit, or the large amount of credit, should go to Drew McIntyre. He has been the one, personality-wise, that has been carrying this feud. And every step along the way, along this journey, has been epic. And you could feel the tension building up over the past couple of weeks, or months, and we're finally getting it. Punk versus McIntyre at SummerSlam. Now, the question here is what's going to happen at SummerSlam? Well, if you want me to put on my prediction hat, well, I'm not going to give you a prediction. I'm going to give you a spoiler, because here's what's going to happen. I think, obviously, the Seth Rollins integration here is in order to, I think, kind of elongate this a little bit and play into the idea of Punk, in this feud. I think what's going to end up happening likely is Rollins is going to cost either Punk or McIntyre at SummerSlam, inadvertently perhaps, but he's going to cost them. And that's going to lead up to a match at their next pay-per-view, Bash in Berlin. And if you ask me, I think the match to do is Rollins versus Punk at Bash in Berlin. And then you follow up all of the Drew McIntyre and Punk stuff with a clean finish, middle of the ring. Give me Bad Blood in Atlanta, Georgia. Hell in the Cell. I think that's the path we're on. I think this is this reminds me, for those of you who were around back then, and I was like a child, but I do remember the vibe and the energy behind the Triple H Shawn Michaels feud in 2004. And that feud was also like a 6-7 month long feud, just within the time frame of when they or not even a 7 month long feud. That was like nearly a year at that point. But anyway, that was a very long feud, and they were able to stretch it out, and it culminated in a Hell in a Cell match. And it was a very similar thing. Like, these two just wanted to get their hands on each other. It was not about a title. It was more than just about, who's the best or anything. This was, we need to settle this in the ring. We need to settle this in Hell in a Cell. That's the path they're on. That is where I think this is leading. That is where I think this will go. But we will see. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen. Are we going to get that at Bad Blood? I think so, but again, I want to hear from y'all. Let me know in the comments. As we move on to our next and final topic, let's talk about All Elite Wrestling. So AEW TV has been presented a little bit different. If you've noticed over the past couple of weeks, neither Dynamite nor Collision up until this past week had their intro played, nor did they have fireworks, pyrotechnics at all on TV. Well, the reason for that was revealed at one point to be the fact that they are currently in cost-cutting modes. So unless it's a very, very big TV, or if it's a pay-per-view, you will not see pyro on AEW programming, at least for right now, as they seem to be, again, in cost-cutting mode. Apologies for the typo and the chyron. But we are now learning more information about what happened this past Saturday night when they did, in fact, play the intro, but it wasn't the one that we were expecting. Usually, AEW Collision, the intro is Saturday night's alright for fine and in a little action and on a diesel. Elton John usually plays us into Saturday Night Collision. That did not happen. We got a Mikey Ruckus song, which was a fine song, but it was not Elton John, let's be honest. Had a lot of people wondering what the hell was going on. Well, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter broke it down for us. Here's what he said. A lot of heat, obviously, because they changed the opening theme, indicating a lot of heat about the song changing. People were not happy online. He goes on to say, it's interesting because people keep bringing it up, and it's true. There's a lot of cutbacks being made to in production. You would think that this would not be the time to do that. Obviously, this Arlington residency, the whole thing is cost-saving. They dumped the Elton John song, and they put their new song in place. And obviously, that's cost-saving. That's a cost-saving thing. But I thought the Elton John, the Elton John, excuse me, can't read today. The Elton John, to me, was a real cool open. Look, I don't know what y'all think about Dave Meltzer, but I happen to agree with him, at least with that last sentence, for sure. I mean, that was honestly, best theme for any wrestling show right now was that, Saturday night's all right. Come on, I was singing it earlier on. Obviously, it's a great song. Anytime you can get Elton John, shout out to you. But they've obviously moved in a different direction with that. Look, the reality is, at this point, AEW they were running very hot for a while, right? And we've had this conversation a few times, but they were running very hot for a couple of years. And Tony Khan, at the beginning, even stated this multiple times. He's stated that, it was a priority for him to make sure the show is presented, not as, this indie-rific, whatever, but it was presented in a high-value way. That pyrotechnics, things like that, were a part of the show. And I think the farther down we've gone in this, I think the more the reality of a couple of things are setting in. And it's not every show needs necessarily pyrotechnics. Not every show is going to warrant that. Not every show, honestly, is going to justify pyrotechnics. Now, if you ask me as a fan, I think it adds to the show. I think when you can have that open play and you get that familiarity with the open, it gets you hyped. It really does get you hyped. And it's a way that shows have hooked people for a very long time. And I'm honestly, I was a little bit upset when they started to move away from that. I understand like why in a rating sense they want to do that, because they want to get right to the action, get our biggest star out there, make sure as many people as possible are watching at the beginning, hook them early, hook them for sure. I think that's really what this is. This is like we are in contract like mode. We are about to close this TV deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. We got to make sure we get as many people watching this show as possible. And I think that's why they moved away from the intros as of late. Again, interesting move. I don't necessarily like. I see the idea behind it because you want to make sure as many people who are watching the previous show are watching your show. But it's just like it kind of goes against a little bit of what Tony was talking about in the beginning. You know, like the idea of making sure that this feels like a high production show. Again, you don't need to do it every week, but the fact that we haven't gotten like an intro in a while, or we got it like maybe once in the past like 2-3 months, it takes away a little bit. It does take away. I think part of what makes TV watching special are like those intros, right? Like it's like, Sunday Night Football. If I'm watching Sunday Night Football, I want to hear whoa, whoa. This is the most I'm ever going to sing in a news update. But you know what I'm saying? You want to hear that familiar tune that gets you hyped, ready, and gets your brain in gear to know that you were about to see like this really cool show. So they're in cost-cutting mode. I think a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that like the houses aren't really good. Like, let's be honest, like the houses are not like really good, and I think maybe that's what they're factoring into this decision making. They're like, if the house isn't that good, probably no point in having pyro on TV. At least not for now. I think that will probably change at some point. Like after they get this TV deal, that money starts rolling in. I think that we will probably see pyro at least come back for more frequently on AEW TV. But we will see what happens. Guys, let me know in the comment section what you think about the way AEW's presented TV so far this year. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you miss Elton John like I do? I know I do. Let me know in the comment section. Also, be sure, if you haven't already done so, to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released.